Welcome, sentient beings from all known universes and beyond. It's time to activate your cranial downlinks and prepare to receive a raft of discussion on a cosmic ocean of science fiction and fantasy topics, interviews with local area genre devotees, and insightful prognostication by our soothsayers of science fiction, our forecasters of fantasy, and any other beings that happen to get caught in our gravity well. This is the Galactic Driftwood Podcast.
Hello, Drifters, and welcome to another episode of the Galactic Driftwood Podcast. I'm Bill.
I'm Linda.
I'm Charles.
I'm Seth.
I'm Jenna.
And I'm Stu.
And that's Stu. And this week we're going to be talking about the new, relatively new Disney Marvel Universe story movie, Werewolf by Night. And I think we're going to throw the microphone over to Seth here to sort of give us a rundown of what that is all about. And then we'll kind of comment on what we thought about it, what we liked, disliked, and etc. So, Seth, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, Werewolf by Night is not a Marvel Comics character who I know a lot about, but it sounds like Stu has some more experience with that. But the movie itself just dropped on Disney Plus maybe a few weeks ago, and I hadn't been expecting it, so I was like, okay, I'll watch this. And it turned out to be a really fun. It's set up like an old B horror movie, much akin to like one of the original Dracula movies or the first werewolf movies. It's got that same kind of campy feel. And it's all in black and white except for very specific parts. And so when we start off, we're in this old building out a rich mansion where a bunch of monster hunters are gathering to both mourn the loss of like the progenitor of this monster hunting organization, and to find out who is going to take his mythical artifact, the Bloodstone, and rise to his office. And so it's kind of half funeral, half will reading that they're all showing up for. And we meet a bunch of different hunters, as well as Jack Russell, it kind of looks like a priest type of guy. Has face tattoos and seems very out of place amongst all these hunters. And we also meet the other protagonist, Elsa Bloodstone, who is the prodigal daughter of this monster hunting family. She is apparently abandoned the family and now is back to claim her birthright, which her stepmom, a horrible old crone who is married to this guy, does not want her there. And so, they move on to the actual funeral / will reading, and it turns out that they're just gonna the guy who died, his wife, had just like his last wishes had just been fully turned into a Disney animatronic. And so they wind him up, and the corpse itself gives the will reading, obviously with like mechanics installed in him, recordings. And he sets up the stakes. They have captured a horrible monster and put it out in the maze and embedded this bloodstone in it to make it both weaker and more likely to attack, and whatever hunter is the first one to kill it gets the bloodstone and is in charge of the organization. And so we get to the actual bit about hunting the monster, and we find out that Jack Russell isn't here to kill the monster at all. He doesn't care about the bloodstone. He's here to save the monster, which you can see in the thing right now, and it's the man thing. And they're apparently just friends.
Yeah.
I call it Cthulhu face. It looks like Cthulhu face.
Yeah.
It did.
What was its name? Like Bob or something?
Frank,
Frank.
something like
I
that.
can't remember what he calls him, but it is the man thing. Or Ted.
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 Yeah. And he's like really friendly when you're talking to him.
Man Thing is a venerable Marvel Comics character. He's been around forever.
Oh yeah, even I know Man Thing. I don't know much about him, but I instantly recognized him. So Jack Russell's there to save his friend Ted, who, like, the very first thing you see out of this monster is just like him grabbing someone and just melting their head. And then Jack Russell talks to him, and he's like, "Man, how did you get captured?" And
Again.
He's like, "This is the last. I'm not saving you again. I'm not saving you again. This is it." So it was just a fun moment in the middle of it.
Yeah.
But eventually Elsa tumbles onto the fact that he's not here to kill the thing, and so he works a deal out with her. He's like, help me save my friend, and you get the Bloodstone. And that eventually doesn't go well for them, and they both end up captured. And that's when she finds out he's not. He might be a hunter, but he's not human. He is, and apparently everyone else also figured it out. He's a monster, and they're going to use the Bloodstone to reveal his true nature. And his true nature is he is a werewolf. And right up until the end, he's like, "Look, guys, don't do this. Don't do this, and everyone gets to live. If you do this, if you push me, I am literally not responsible for what comes next." And then they do it, and he is not responsible for what happens next.
And
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Which is he murders, or the werewolf he turns into murders everyone except for Elsa, who he had made a point to like smell beforehand so that he could like assure his beast she was a friend.
Yeah.
And so he murders everyone. Elsa gets the Bloodstone, and then he goes and has he kills a lot of expendable troops.
Right.
Lot of expendable troops, and there's like blood
Elsa gets
splatter
to be friends with
across
the monster too.
There's blood splatter that's across the the lens of the camera.
Yeah.
Like the ending is it's just fun. It's a fun little horror movie-esque romp, and the guy who plays Jack Russell, Gael Garcia Bernal. I don't know if I've ever seen him in much before. I'd have to look him up. But the people who made this obviously had a good time.
Yeah. Seth, glancing at the Wikipedia page, I guess it was really quite the search for the proper guy to play Werewolf by Night. They really put a lot of energy into it.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't slot it's in the current MCU, but it has nothing to do with the current MCU. Like, who knows if these characters will show up elsewhere? They might just be one shots, and I'm fine with that. It was just fun.
Yeah, I thought it was a great standalone film, especially coming out right before Halloween like it did.
Mm-hmm.
So, what were you going to say, Charles?
Oh no, I just said they were fun characters. I like.
Yeah, you liked it.
Both the werewolf and Elsa were both fun.
Yeah,
it'd be fun to see elsewhere, I think.
Yeah,
they had a fun kind of buddy cop dynamic, you know.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, there's the corpse of the guy, the animatronic corpse of the founder of the organization that died, and his wife, who's equally horrible. Probably the most horrible character in the show.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's interesting because you start to pick up from all the MCU movies that there are other creatures that it's bigger than we realize. And the fact that they created this, I think it was to test the waters, because Deadpool 3 is going to be rated R. This was in essence supposed to be kind of like the horror Marvel movie. And I think they're just trying to judge how far they can start taking newer films, and the concept, and maybe adding these extra gory elements.
Yeah, we kind of
like
touched on this in when we were talking about She-Hulk, but Marvel has a deep well of characters that they can, stories and whatnot that they can pull through, and we see that they are willing to dig into that deep catalog and pull out gems.
Have they done Dazzler yet, Seth?
They have not.
No, but I just saw an article that there is a director who's interested in doing Dazzler, and it's a big director. Let me see if I can find it real quick.
How will they do Dazzler without mutants being in the MCU?
Well, mutants are coming in now, aren't they?
Well, they are, but they haven't yet.
Soon.
I mean,
Jerry
Dazzler
Maguire
was always my favorite character to play in the old X-Men arcade game.
Who was?
Dazzler.
Oh, really?
Same here. The old arcade game, I'd play her all the time too. Jerry Maguire director Cameron Crowe wants to make X-Men movie about Dazzler.
That could be lots of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cameron Crowe started off as a writer for Rolling Stone. He's the guy who did Almost Famous.
But I mean, if they're willing to do stuff like Werewolf by Night and bring in the kind of Marvel monsterverse, I guess you might call it, we could see some weird shit like X-Men versus Dracula.
I don't know if I can.
That was a big thing back in the 80s. I want to say 80s is Dracula was a kind of like a big villain, and there was a big storyline where Storm gets turned into a vampire.
I don't think we can count anything from the 80s. There was a lot of cocaine done in that decade.
But I mean, that's the sort of thing we can see, though. And there was a recent event where it was X-Men versus vampires was a huge event a couple years ago.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Back in the day, there was a little stretch in the 80s where Dracula was a major Doctor Strange villain. Actually, there was a book called The Darkhold that, at one time purged the universe of vampires, but they got better.
Well, I mean, the Darkhold just showed up in the Darkhold showed up in Doctor Strange 2.
There you go. That's your gateway drug right there.
So, Stu, can you tell us? Do you know when werewolves first started entering the mythos?
Ever? Oh,
yeah.
Gosh. There are werewolf stories going back to ancient Rome. Oh my goodness gracious! They go back quite a ways. If you want to talk about really what I would consider the core of werewolf folklore, it really piggybacks along with the witch trials. If you go to werewolf, in terms of people being convicted of lycanthropy,
yeah, it's
essentially the same sort of story that you see with a witch. So someone comes out and says, "I met this dark man in the forest, and I pledged him, my soul or what have you, and he gave me the power to turn into a wolf." That's the whole idea of the werewolf being a contagious condition. That's kind of cut on from the vampires. In folklore, you became a werewolf usually because you wanted to. That was a magical thing. That was something that was actually a goal. I have in my possession a ritual for one to become a werewolf if they so desire.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, Jim Butcher actually kind of explained that pretty well about why one would want to become a werewolf. Mm-hmm. In the second book of the Dresden Files series, they're talking about the different kinds of werewolves and why one would want to. And they're think of it from the perspective of a medieval peasant. If you're a wolf, you can get whatever food you need.
Right.
You can hunt on the king's land and no one can catch you. You're fed throughout the winter. You've got the power to defend your family.
Right.
It was
Oh.
that would have been a pretty sweet deal for like pre-gun.
Well, now, but was the idea then back at that time that if you became a werewolf, you had the option of changing at will into a werewolf? Because it seems like nowadays it's the legend is that it only happens during a full moon.
Yeah, and that is very much that's a creation of modern fiction. I don't think you see that at all until the 1935 movie Werewolf of London. From the Universal folks. No, in folklore, you usually became a werewolf because you wanted to. You'd smear an ointment on yourself and put on a wolf pelt, and you'd transform into a werewolf. And if there were people in Peter Stubb comes to mind, Jean Grenier in early modern France and Germany, who were caught, and there was evidence that they had, in their wolf form, killed children, and they were executed in very horrific fashion, I might add. I mean, we're talking pure torture porn. They did horrible things to these guys, and then, in fact, a little bit earlier than that, though, there was one young man who was also convicted of lycanthropy, convicted of being a werewolf, and they recognized there was something wrong with this kid, and they confined him to a monastery for life. That was like the closest thing to being not guilty by reason of insanity was sticking in a monastery for the rest of your life, just keep you away from people.
Huh.
So there's a real lycanthropy is a real crime in early modern Europe.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was very much an at-will thing. The moon part really doesn't come in until modern fiction.
Huh. Interesting. All right.
What I thought, when you think about the folklore too, werewolves, and it kind of does show up all over the world, because I'm trying to find it now. What I liked about the Jack Russell character, the tattoos on his face are basically of the sugar skull of Mexico's Dia de los Muertos. And he's like, when someone says cool face tattoos, like, oh, I think he said it honors my ancestors, something like that. And it just brought to mind when you do find out for sure he's the werewolf, that, even the Aztecs had mythos about wolfmen.
Very much so.
Mm.
Yeah. And I was trying to find the specific one, and I'm not sure if this is it, but yeah, there's talks of King of the Wolves, and, the Spanish even made comment about, wolf relationships in Aztecs. So it's interesting. I thought that was a really cool, instead of it being like necessarily a European werewolf, it's a Mexican werewolf,
a new world werewolf. Yeah. And if you want to overlap what is considered Mexico into what used to be considered Mexico, you have the Diné folklore of the skinwalker. You have this that's a very powerful, almost too powerful medicine really to mention. It is considered so horrific what a skinwalker will do.
Huh.
Yeah.
It's a deep archetype.
And because it's not just the Diné. The Diné, I think, is the most well known because it's the largest tribe in the Southwest. But skinwalkers are discussed among almost all the tribes of some sort. And generally it's all agreed that it's a shaman who's done something terrible to get these powers to be able to change skins.
Mm-hmm.
And they become
supposedly
owners.
he can just become anybody he wants to be. Then that's the skinwalker.
Not necessarily a person. Generally, it's a dog. It's a wolf or a dog. Sometimes it can be a horrible, monstrous chimera of dog and deer, and it just depends. And especially with the Diné, the tribes that still kind of believe in this, like if you go to New Mexico, they'll tell you if you see a black dog on the side of the road, you don't pull over.
Oh.
And that there are certain areas you don't go to because these things still exist, that you don't say skinwalker, or you don't use the word that means skinwalker in their language because you attract their attention.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still
the idea that it is so bad we don't even talk about it is so nasty. The ironic part, toot my own horn now, going back to in Slavic folklore, it's kind of the opposite, where one of this, probably the most popular Serbian term for vampire is actually werewolf, because it's more of a euphemism. Like, the vampire is so nasty, we don't talk about that, we just call it a werewolf. So
Huh.
it depends on which side of the Atlantic you're on, I guess.
So, did any of the skinwalkers ever become Labradors? Because I've got kind of a super suspicion that Winston may not be totally legit.
I mean, Winston is just somebody who lived a really good life and came back as your dog. That gets like get all the nice things. They get pets, they play, they eat. That's it.
Yeah, he is a spoiled dog.
Let me see.
Winston is somebody.
I'm seeing coyotes. I'm seeing no. It's along those lines. And on a lighter note, I find it absolutely hilarious that the name of the ostensible protagonist in Werewolf by Night is Jack Russell.
I know.
I know.
Isn't that hilarious?
There's got to be a terrier joke that they've put in there at some point.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because when I looked up his profile in the Marvel Universe, one of his nicknames is Pretty Boy.
No, nice.
Funny.
It was a good show.
It was fun.
No,
It was a short movie, but it was a lot of fun.
Does anybody know if it followed, like, to some exactness the original publication or not?
No,
Not
not
a clue.
at all. Not at all. In the original comics, Jack
What I
Russell
thought.
he wakes up on his 18th birthday, and that's when he finds out that he's inherited the family curse, and he just kind of goes on from there. But as time goes on, he gains more control over it as time goes.
That's what it looked to me, and I sent you guys a link, but which probably no, but it looked to me like they had taken this right out of the book A Billion Wicked Thoughts from a decade ago.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
Oh, well, that one they had, it was female porn search results. And one of the favorite things for women to look up is werewolves.
Huh.
There's like 5 archetypes according to Google back a decade ago. It was like werewolves, vampires,
Here's
surgeons,
Linda. Get on Google.
billionaires, that kind of thing. And one of them was werewolves. One of the more popular ones was werewolves. And there's, I suppose, I didn't, there's some sort of genre where, the woman's pursued by a monster, but somehow because she's so beautiful or whatever, it leaves her alone. Yeah,
The Beauty and the Beast kind of thing.
Beauty and the Beast. It goes way back, but it just felt to me. I watched this. I felt to me like they had done this whole show based on this book's search, what they claim Google search results were
On werewolf porn.
on werewolf porn. Yeah,
I hadn't heard that one.
I didn't get that feeling from it because there wasn't so much romance between the two protagonists.
well, there's not in female porn necessarily.
Yeah, no, I
Not that I know, but I'm just what
I'd say you should go read some of it before.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah.
No.
What I do know of is that when I saw that the other protagonist was Emma Bloodstone, I read some Ulysses Bloodstone comics back in the day, and that's fascinating because he was just sort of he was this archetypal monster hunter. He was imbued with magical powers. His backstory was that he was a caveman. He was this prehistoric, Neolithic European who finds this magical ruby that embedded itself in his chest and basically kept him alive for 10,000 years to go hunt monsters. But beyond that, he was mostly just going after him with a shot. He was going after him with a shotgun and survival skills with a mystical ruby in his chest. It's a really
I think that's kind of how they portray him in the opening, like where they're giving the quick rundown of what's going on. So they never.
But he's the multi. He's not the original. Like what Stu is saying. In the setup, they make it sound like it's the family bloodstone and they pass it on, blah, 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 blah. And now he's died and it's time for it to pass on again.
But they do make him out to be the big monster hunter. So like everyone's here to pay respects to him.
Yeah, it was neat. It was kind of a kooky character. I can see why I didn't catch on because there's not a lot of coherence to it. But it was a heck of a concept. You have this magical stone that just kept him alive for eons, just forever and a day, and it ends up being with his daughter, with a guy named Jack Russell, who's a werewolf. It sounds like a great show. I really, Seth, you made it sound just fantastic.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
it was a fun show.
I'd watch more. I would happily watch another one of these next year.
Linda, did you like it?
Yes.
Anything else?
Did you get this? I feel like Ted got captured because he was trying to get sushi based off of how that movie.
Yeah.
Like Ted was just minding his own business, trying to like get some sushi from the back, but no one was looking. They're like, "Oh, monster! Let's use this to put into our trial by fire for the."
Yeah, he's just like, poor Ted is just like, "This is a Wendy's. Leave me alone."
Yeah, good old man thing. That was. I mean, I haven't read a lot of Man Thing. If I did, it was like at least 40 years ago. What I know mostly about Man Thing is that's the most unfortunately titled comic book of all time was his annual special called Giant Sized Man Thing.
Oh.
And 30 years later, the internet found out and realized that was funny.
Oh boy.
Nice.
Yikes.
I like that. I do like stories where the presumed monster is actually one of the more redeeming characters in the story, compared to the other individuals that look normal and end up being really the monstrous ones in the show. So
yeah, and all the other monster hunters are bastards to one degree or another.
Right. Interesting. And all really
Except the one
to kill one another just to get the bloodstone.
Mm-hmm.
You think there would be a more productive way if you're running an organization designed to defeat this terrible foe? Why have a contest where you're killing members of your organization to see who's the dominant one? Why wouldn't you let all the top monster hunters just come in and just
let's
do it like the papal
now you're trying
style,
to
and
make sense out of it. It's not
we'll just send up white smoke when we figure out who the
right.
We're talking about like the woman who set this up had her ex-husband
animatronicized,
like the full-on taxidermied animatronics, and he had recorded that he was in on it, so he recorded. This was not a family, Bill.
But no, Bill,
they could have just set this up to be a will reading in like a normal house where everyone could have come in from the airport and then left.
Yeah.
I took this as that if the real monsters, for the most part, were the monster hunters.
Oh yeah.
And if you wanted, so that's why having the monster. So if you're wanting to sell, let's say you're selling swords or stuff, knives and guns. Having them kill each other is okay. As long as you blame it on the monsters later, right?
Here's the thing: I don't think they were supposed to kill each other. They just took it to that level.
Yeah,
that's
the one who added the whole element of I'll take out my competition to get the bloodstone.
Yeah,
but I think from a capitalistic war machine viewpoint, it's okay having them fight each other. Anyway,
that is definitely what Hitler would have done. That's absolutely true.
Yeah.
All right.
So they continue to maybe do, even if this is a one-off and it doesn't ever interact with the main storyline of the Marvel movies, of the different phases. I think it'd be cool if they did an annual short like this that was based off more of the horror comics.
Yeah, right before Halloween.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
the next one we should get is will just be with Ted, the man thing.
Yeah, why not? That makes sense. He's got a lot. There's a lot of lore there.
Yeah.
Certainly. Like, can you see Wanda Maximoff interacting with these guys?
Oh yeah. Like
Yeah.
we could definitely get a Doctor Strange interacting with him too.
Easily.
Or they'd fit right in at Carmitage with Wong and the other sorcerers.
Wong.
Yeah.
I know. Forget Doctor Strange. Let's bring Wong.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. Sounds good. Well, if you've watched Werewolf by Night, let us know what you thought about it. What'd you like? What'd you dislike? And if you have anything you'd like us to check out and review, let us know that as well. And we'll do that in an upcoming show. So on that note, I think we will say goodbye for today. Any last minute thoughts from anybody before we cut out? No.
Thank you
All
for
right.
having me.
No, I think we're good.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming on, Stu, and thanks for filling us up with werewolf lore and stuff. So appreciate it. All right, folks.
The one final word on this ritual I have about becoming a werewolf, by the way.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's always magic rituals always have like an out, because one of the precursors of this ritual is you have to have a stand of pure iron, and you have to have a perfectly flat space on top of a mountain.
Oh.
I
Yeah.
don't have either of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like there's so many things that can go wrong in this ritual. You can say if it doesn't work, well, you can just blame it on something you did wrong.
Well,
I was actually just about to ask you, just be like, hey, Stu, can I see that ritual really quick?
I know.
I mean, go ahead. Let's just maybe we turn that into our next Galactic Driftwood podcast. Seth attempts to become a werewolf.
Ooh, I
Oh my
like it.
God.
I mean, I just want to be a
It also-
happy doggo. Sit like, where's
I thought
Seth?
it was
Oh, he's
because
just
you were
relaxing
into
today. He
doggy
became
style,
a werewolf, and he's just out running.
It also requires opium, so you gotta throw in that too. So
Better.
Ah.
This
I'm not
sounds
making
rad.
one word of this up.
I get my own flat part on a mountain somewhere. I get a stand of iron. I get
Mesa
some
Verde, yeah.
opium. I get to be a doggo. This just sounds like a good deal.
Yeah, you basically got to go out to Mesa Verde for this bad boy. Yep, I can see that.
Yeah, that's
Sweet.
not really set up to be used in Nebraska, is it?
No.
Nope.
No.
Oh well.
There's got to be a way of modifying that a little bit. for different areas of the world.
I mean, there's mountains in Colorado. We'll make it work.
Right.
Right. Yeah,
That's true.
Like I said, you know, Mesa Verde, that whole area is completely flat, almost completely flat on top. That's how it worked.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
I think we have a road trip.
Next time, watch Driftwood.
What have I done?
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you all for tuning in. We will catch you next time. Have a good week. Bye-bye,
All
everybody.
right. Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Galactic Driftwood podcast. For more information and past episodes, please visit our website at galacticdriftwood.space or subscribe to us on YouTube. And now, please deactivate your cranial downlinks, collect your towels, and be sure to watch your step as you exit our gravity well.